What's up, guys? 9 a.m. Friday morning. Today we have a leg day, so quad and glute focus with some hamstrings as well. It's been a long week. I don't really feel like doing shit, but we gotta put in that work. We gotta get after it, despite how we feel sometimes. So, getting down into the garage here. Already got the heater going. It's not too cold outside. A little nippy, but nothing crazy. So yeah, leg day. Quads, glutes, hamstrings with a little bit more of a quad focus in today's workout. So we're gonna start things off with a general warm up, then we'll get into our mass building sets, and then we have a pretty disgusting quad focused finisher. So let's get into it. We are starting things off with the assault bike for 3 minutes. So what I like to do is start off with the first minute, nice and easy. Second minute, push the pace a little bit more, and third minute, start to really push the pace so that I'm gradually warming the body up, gradually increasing that heart rate. If you guys don't have access to an assault bike, do any form of light cardio. It could be rowing, jump rope, jogging, whatever it may be. Just use the same structure. First minute, nice and easy. Second minute, increase the intensity. Third minute, push it even more. Next, we start waking up the glutes and the hips with a lateral band walk, 20 reps one direction, 20 reps in the other direction. I'm using a thick glute band here. The key to this exercise is keeping constant tension on the band and constant tension on the hips and the glutes. So way too often I see people that bring their feet all the way together, which releases tension on the band and turns the glutes and hips off. So it's just not that effective. It's gonna be way more effective if we keep constant tension on the muscles that we're waking up here in the hips and glutes. So constant tension on the band, really drive your knees out through that tension. Toes pointed straight ahead, slight bend of the knee. Nice controlled steps, keeping constant tension on the band, making those hips and glutes work. 20 reps one direction, and then we'll go 20 reps in the other direction. Next up, we're still firing up the hips and the glutes in the monster walk, 20 reps going forwards, 20 reps going backwards. So on the first exercise, a lateral band walk, we're moving side to side in that frontal plane. So now we're gonna move a little bit more in that sagittal plane, going front to back. So we're focusing on keeping constant tension, of course, keeping those glutes and hips turned on. We're gonna step forwards and slightly out on each step. So constant tension, forwards and out. Really feeling those hips and glutes turning on each step. So 20 reps forwards and then 20 reps going backwards. Next up, we start to stretch out the hamstrings and start to activate quads and glutes even further with a stretch kick to back lunge, 10 reps on one leg and then 10 reps on the other leg. So we want to keep our chest nice and tall when we go into that stretch kick, keep your leg as straight as possible, and then we're going to step right back into our back lunge. So stretch kick right into the back lunge, lowering down, keeping the chest up. Back knee lightly touches the floor. Drive this front knee out to really keep those glutes firing, and then stand tall. We reset and then go into our next rep. So 10 reps on one leg, and then 10 reps on the other leg. And now we get into our final warm-up exercise. We have the kettlebell good morning plus a goblet squat for 8 total reps. So now we start to really get the hamstrings, quads, and glutes under some lighter loads to get them fired up and ready for our first weighted exercise. So we're gonna grab our kettlebell, we're gonna clean it up into the goblet position. We're gonna pin the bottom of this kettlebell to the sternum. We're gonna pull the shoulders down and back, keep the chest nice and tall throughout. Feet are gonna be a little more than shoulder width, toes pointed straight ahead, slight bend of the knees. We're then gonna hinge at the hips. So push the hips back until you get a really good stretch in those hamstrings. Pull your body back up with the hamstrings and glutes. Then go into that goblet squat position, elbows nice and tight to the body. Drive the knees out as you lower down, keeping the heels down and chest up nice and tall. Drive back up, stand tall. That's 1 rep, 8 total reps. All right, guys, starting off quads and glutes with the Bulgarian split squat, 10 reps per leg, 3 total sets, resting 2 minutes and 30 seconds in between sets. So putting probably the toughest exercise first. This exercise has so many benefits. It's one of the best unilateral exercises for building the quads and glutes in my opinion. One of the only downsides to this movement is that it is so systematically fatiguing. It is brutal. So feel free to take longer rest periods, up to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You still want to be going as heavy as you possibly can while maintaining excellent technique. So make sure Really good control on the way down, 1 second pause, really driving up, flexing the quads and glutes at the top. Now, one little trick with this movement, if you guys want to target more of the glutes, step out further from the bench, so a longer step, longer stride. Also hinge more at the hips, so a forward lean, which is going to stretch out the quads more and put more, the glutes more, and put more focus on the glutes throughout the exercise. If you guys want to target the quads more of a narrow stance, so closer stance, and keep that chest nice and tall. So now let's talk a little bit about the technique. So the elevated surface that we use is super important. We don't want to go too high. If we go too high, the limiting factor in achieving full range of motion on this is going to be the flexibility or length in our hip flexors. So for a lot of people, you're not going to be able to get full range of motion because that bench is too high and there's too much of a stretch. You're going to feel it most in that hip flexor as opposed to the quad and glute of the leg that we should be working. So you want to pick a bench that's about 12 to 16 inches in height, play around with that height, so something that allows you to, again, achieve full range of motion on every single rep. Now, I mentioned earlier, if you take a bigger step out and have more of a forward lean, we're targeting more of the glutes, more narrow step, chest up, more of the quads, so pick that distance. So we step out, foot is going to be flat on the bench here. We're lowering down with really good control, so nice controlled eccentric, pausing for 1 second, full range of motion, drive up to stand tall. All right, guys, next up, moving away from quads and glutes, going to hamstrings, so opposing muscle groups. Using the Nordic hamstring curl negative, 3 sets, 10 reps, resting 2 minutes in between sets. So it's one of my favorite exercises. So this exercise is great for anybody who's just looking to build the hamstrings without using weight. This is also not a hip hinging exercise, it's more of a knee flexion and extension. So it's better on the hips. So if you have any hip issues like myself, I have torn labrums in my hips, I stay away from a lot of hip hinging. So this is one of the most effective ways because we can really load up the hamstrings with a ton of our own body weight and get a really good growth stimulus from this movement. If you can't set up the Nordic hamstring curl negative, what you can do is do any sort of RDL. I would do it with a 2-second pause, really slow eccentric to mimic the fatigue and the amount of stress that we put on the hamstrings with the Nordic hamstring curl negative. So as stated in the name, the main focus is going to be on the negative or the eccentric portion of this movement. So we're lowering as slowly as we possibly can, creating as much damage to the hamstrings and putting as much tension on the hamstring as we can. And then we're just exploding back up. The focus won't be on that concentric. Again, focusing on that eccentric / negative where we can produce the most muscular force. Next up, we're coming back to a quad focus exercise in the kettlebell heel elevated front squat. 3 sets, 12 reps, 2 minutes rest in between sets. So I'm using a 2-inch heel elevation here. By elevating the heels, this allows for us to let our knees track over our toes more. Also allows for us to keep a more upright torso throughout the full range of this movement, which all in all puts more stretch and more focus on the quads as opposed to the glutes, so more of a quad focused exercise. Also, by holding the kettlebells in that front rack position, hold the kettlebells out in front of the body to some extent, puts more focus on the quads. Now, we're not gonna be able to load this movement up as heavy as if we had a barbell on our back, but we can still load it up heavy enough to really deliver a good quad stimulus. So, we'll get into this movement. We're gonna hike those bells up nice and safely, nice flat back, clean them, elbows pinned to the body. We're gonna lower down with control, core braced, keeping that chest as upright as possible, full stretch, pause for a second at the bottom, flex those quads at the top. Getting into our last exercise of the main part of the workout, we're gonna be targeting the hamstrings and glutes with the barbell Sumo RDL. We're going 3 sets, 8 total reps, 2 minutes rest in between sets. So it's a hip hinging exercise. We're gonna be pushing the hips back with a slight bend of the knee. We're gonna be lowering down slowly and with control, really lengthening, stretching out the hamstrings and glutes. We're gonna be pausing in this fully stretched position for 2 seconds. We're gonna pull the body back up with the hamstrings and glutes. Bring the hips to neutral, flex and contract the hamstrings and glutes, then lower right back down into your next rep to keep constant tension on the muscles that we're working. So we're gonna angle those toes out slightly, nice wide stance, close grip. We start off with a sumo deadlift because the RDL starts at the top. Now, we push the hips back, slight bend of the knee. Feel those hamstrings and glutes stretching and lengthening. Pause for 2, pull back up with the hamstrings and glutes, then lower right back down into the next rep. All right, guys, coming back to quads to finish things off with a quad superset finisher. So 2 exercises. We start off 10 reps of the kettlebell heel elevated squat with a 2-second pause. We then put down the bells. We then do as many body weight heel elevated squats as we possibly can with good technique. As soon as you finish, you're gonna rest 90 seconds. We're doing 2 to 3 total sets. If you guys don't wanna grip and hold on to kettlebells or dumbbells, you can certainly use a barbell instead. You wanna find a weight though that's bringing you very close to failure on that first 10 reps. Then of course, we're going to complete failure on the body weight squats. So here we go, we're grabbing our bells. Slow controlled descents. I want that 2-second pause in the bottom. Do not cheat that pause. I want 2 seconds. As soon as you finish, drop the bells. Full stretch. Slow controlled body weight squats to failure.